What's up, planeswalkers, and welcome to another episode of the Hive Mind. This is the show where I traverse the multiverse in search of other prominent members of the Magic the Gathering community. And I didn't have to go far this time, planeswalkers, to traverse to find this prominent member. But before I introduce my guest, I do have to tell you about cardsphere.com. If you have all the paper magic that you want to trade or buy or sell, all that great stuff, go to cardsphere.com. And also, if you want cool swag like this cool hat or shirts, bags, any of that awesome swag stuff, go to txcp.store. That's txcp.store and get your 15% off with promo code HiveMind, txcp.store. So thank you so much, cardsphere.com. So without further ado, planeswalking in from Snohomish, Washington, broadcasting here live from Geek Fortress, I have Mr. TJ Rogers. Thank you for joining me, sir.
I'm more scooping in than planeswalking in.
It was like a manual transmission kind of.
I warned you that it's impossible to scoot forward and look cool.
If scooting could be cool, yep. You just made it cool. This is the new floss? No. Is that what the cool kids are doing these days?
I don't know a single thing that the cool kids are doing these days.
Yeah, you know, no one says that we're cool kids.
I recently learned that I could say big mood to agree with things, and I've been really trying that one out.
Big mood.
Big mood, yeah.
Big mood.
That's been one that I've tried. Apparently, I've done it wrong a couple of times.
All right.
But it's been a good time. Yeah, I don't know what the cool kids are up to these days. I'm pretty much just trapped in this room.
That's true. Well, and this is kind of how the sausage is being made. You do, multiple streams from this room, right?
Yeah, a couple times a week, though. The home one is not from here. Anything MTGO, Arena, anything like that. But every single time that I'm doing the coverage from here, it's back here. Normally, the screen is not quite so green in appearance.
Sure.
But it definitely always is.
Hey, we love green. We love any color as long as you're in front of the screen, sir. So, first off, I just want to talk about Washington for a bit.
Sure.
Because I am not from here, as I've stated before multiple times. Mm-hmm. I'm from the desert, and I think I complained more here about the heat than I did there.
Yes. No, that's definitely true. It's all relative, right? Heat in the desert. It strikes me as the kind of thing to where you're used to it.
Yes.
I imagine that it gets cold at night, so maybe this isn't nearly as good. But for us, we exist between 35 and 85.
Yes.
And if you go outside those realms at all, we are livid.
Yes.
We came here for the moderate weather. We knew exactly what we signed up for, and it was something else.
It was something else. And it's really just July. And across the nation, people are just like screaming through their computer screen right now at us, right? We're just like, oh my God, it's 80 degrees outside.
Okay, but it's hot.
We're dying in here.
I'm weak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this man's wearing a suit and tie, so I know he's, it's crazy hot. But we do this for, look at that.
It's why I installed fans back.
This guy knows. He thinks
I put that vent in here. I cut that into the ceiling myself.
That's awesome.
I know. It was a very difficult day for me. I had to use a drywall saw.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually that hard, but it was fun.
It's very manly.
Oh. It was not if you had seen it.
Awesome. So each and every Hive Mind, we like to know your magic origin story, sir.
Oh, all right. So credit for my origin story. The person who ignited my spark, so to speak, was someone who is actually still a member of the Magic community. He works at a store about half an hour south of here called Zulu's.
Okay. I've been there quite a bit.
So there's an employee there named Jacob.
Okay. I've met him.
Jacob I have known him since I was in kindergarten.
That's awesome.
We grew up together. We were really good friends throughout all of elementary school, all of middle school. High school, we kind of went separate directions where I went into track and cross country. He was in band, just the natural kind of thing.
Sure.
Anyway, after high school, we actually both ended up working at Blockbuster together through just the natural way that the world
God
works.
rest their souls.
I shut down so many Blockbusters.
Oh, no.
I was a harbinger for those places.
Too soon.
I got really good at liquidating a business. So anyway, at one point, there was another coworker of ours named Kenny, and Jacob, he'd been playing Magic for years and years at this point. I had never really been that into it, and he convinced us to try it, and he did something brilliant, which is that he bought us each our first deck. And we couldn't resist at that point, right?
Sure.
All right, well, he's bought the deck, so we might as well give it a shot. He bought me. This was right when they came out the Riku of Two Reflections Commander deck.
Okay.
This was the first one that was in the what's now called the Teamer colors. Kenny got the Kalia of the Vast.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we didn't know how
Right,
good that
yeah.
one was at the time. And then Jacob just had been playing for a while, so he had a Reese the Redeemed.
Nice.
Deck.
That's a good one.
And so he stomped us most of the time. But it was a great deck, and that was sort of where it all started. I remember the first creature that I was fascinated with was the Hydra Omnivore.
Oh,
6 mana, 8/8. Whenever it deals damage to one, it deals damage to all.
Great art, too.
Yeah, that one and the Trench Gorger were the first two creatures.
Which one was that one?
That was the 8 mana Leviathan that I think was like a base level 6/6.
Yes,
So when it entered the battlefield, you could exile any number of lands from your library,
Crazy.
and then it would just be that big. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I was like, how is this card not busted? And then Jacob would path to exile it, and I would realize,
yeah.
Actually, it probably still took me a month or two to realize that it wasn't nearly as busted as I thought.
Sure.
But yeah, Riku of Two Reflections was where it all started for me. Jacob is the person who really got me into the Magic. I remember we were at a party, actually. We had this group of friends, about 6 of us, that all just spent a lot of time at one of their houses. And one time after a party, it was this party where he had put butcher paper on all the walls. And it was this like draw things party. So all the guests are able to just draw on the walls with whatever markers that they want.
You said we could do that here after this.
Oh, yeah, any green marker you want. Yeah, you can get in there.
Nice.
And so I remember at one point, it was like 2 a.m. at the end of it. And what we were doing is he was like sitting there teaching me how a mana curve works on this butcher paper, as everybody else is like kind of winding down the party, and we're just sitting there like fascinated, and I'm learning Magic theory from him. So that was the person who really got me into this game.
That's awesome. Are you guys still playing to this day, or did he kind of move on, or is he still at Zulu?
He's still at Zulu's.
Okay.
We actually went and met each other for some food and a drink last week.
Sure.
But certainly him being a bit farther south, we don't talk as often as we used to, but I think we're working on getting back to that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so then when you started, was that the new hotness that was out? Was that the newest set, like that first Commander or set that was out, or what was the big kind of? Well, what was the standard set that was out when you started? Do you remember?
I believe it was Innistrad, maybe
perfect.
Dark Ascension.
Sure.
It was right in that realm. I think it was Innistrad. Because it was, I'm pretty sure that the Commander decks came out right before those. And mostly I remember as I was starting to get more into the game, one of the first packs that I ever bought was Dark Ascension.
Okay.
Because the first mythic that I pulled was a Havengul Lich.
Oh, nice.
So it was the blue-black mythic that you can start. It's part of a ridiculous
Lazav All-Star.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody knows the Lazav All-Stars. It's on your basic tier rankings.
Sure.
Who doesn't know Havengul Lich?
It's amazing.
So I think that was around the hotness, though. To be honest, I was less familiar with what was in Standard than I was with what had been in, Urza's Legacy or Urza, because starting the game off with Commander and learning through Commander meant that nothing was out of bounds.
Sure. Oh man.
And so I didn't really know what was in Standard. I didn't know the difference between that and anything else because that one didn't really appeal to me for the first 2.5 years that I was playing the game.
Sure.
So I was instead looking at things like Sentinel Hierophants or, Liege of the Tangle got put into my deck. Or I'd be looking at Squirrelcraft was like a really early thing that I learned about. I remember like Googling Magic slang, like Magic terms, just so I could keep up with
this is
people.
before EDH Rec, all that stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
At least I assume so. Or I was very underutilizing the internet. So it's one of the two.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't tell you. But, I do remember the random button on Gatherer was heavily used
right.
by my play group. We'd all just sit there like
That's awesome.
random carding to see what we could do with it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was right around Innistrad, which was apparently a great time to get into it.
It's perfect.
And I didn't even.
Oh, you missed.
I didn't even get the full benefits.
Yeah.
I got all the timing right.
Sure.
None of the benefits.
Well, that's so interesting because I don't think I've ever interviewed someone that started with Commander, and that's like you said, it's like a paint by numbers. It's the equivalent to having like. If you start with Standard or something like that, you get a box of Crayola with 10 colors in it,
right?
And then with EDH, you have the jumbo Costco size Crayon
It
box.
felt like the block of marble in a chisel. Like,
just do whatever you want.
have
And
at it.
that's crazy because starting from there and then trying to go back into, or, you know, and I don't know if you did or not, we'll talk about that, but going into more, you know, standardized formats, competitive formats like Modern, Standard, all that stuff, that had to have been bizarre, right?
Kind of. I remember aggro didn't really appear on my radar for the first 2.5 years.
Bad in EDH.
To me, aggro was the one friend in the playgroup who went, you know, turn to Dark Ritual, and then the one where you sacrifice a creature and get 4 mana or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Ashia Dread as the commander, like on turn 2.
Yeah,
to me,
dirty.
that was like, man, this is aggressive.
That's dirty.
That is not nice.
Wonderful.
Otherwise, like commander, aggro doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
I was really into like big mana strategies.
Sure.
Animar was probably the most frequent commander that I had.
Awesome.
At that time, it was very Eldrazi centric.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the Eldrazi because they were these giant, you know,
You
monstrosities.
just didn't know better.
The-
You had them from the start, so you're like, oh yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That was actually the first box that I bought, was
Yeah.
Rise of the Eldrazi.
Oh wow.
Even though Innistrad was out at the time, I had just random carded into enough of them
Sure.
that when I was thinking, like, what's the best way to acquire cards? Buying a box. like any
Yeah.
relatively new player.
Sure. Yeah. Now we know better.
Exactly. And so I got the first box of it. It had been a little bit out of rotation, so I got it online for $175.
It's not terrible.
No, it also gave me
Yeah.
the first legendary I ever opened. The first pack had a Linvala.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah, I got 2 of the Eldrazi Titans. I missed on Kozilek, but I got Emrakul, I got Ulamog. And then I basically ended up just building a ton of EDH decks out of everything that I'd gotten.
Linvala's the no fun at all. Right?
Yeah, that's the no fun at all. It was fun for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no fun for the opponent. It shuts down all their creature
Sure.
abilities, which in Commander are often plentiful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I sat down with I think it was like Angel of the Waste or something like that. My first commander deck was Ghost Dad, back from Gatecrash, because you know, or as I've done, I'm a big, you know, black-white fan.
Sure.
And I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna put land destruction in here. I'm gonna be one of those guys. And I got like booed off the table, and everyone's just like, someone like, hey, come here, and then kind of told me, hey, this is a gentleman's game. This isn't, you know, back when the rocks were soft when you started it and Ernageddon was a thing. You know, this isn't that. You know, we're not trying to screw over our friends here. We're here to have a good time.
Then why are you even playing Commander?
I know, right? I mean, I was in the wrong play group. You know.
I was in the right play group for a really long time. Those 2 years were some of the most fun times that I had playing Magic.
Yeah.
It was a group that we basically would play D&D, and then we'd play Magic. And it was very centralized around this. You know, there wasn't a massive arms race for a long time.
Sure.
It was a lot of build with what you've got, see what you can come up with, take a deck apart, build up a new one. Ooh, it froze a little bit. That'll work itself out, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. It's a good phase for me. I look very excited by it.
I look like a surprise Muppet, which is on theme with something that we'll talk about later.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I don't know. Maybe if you turn off the camera, then turn it back
Yeah,
on.
maybe. This is you know, everyone's used to this. The wonderful world of Google Hangouts for the Hive Mind.
I've not done a whole lot of like Google hanging
There
out.
we go.
Hey, there we go.
Well, we are Google hanging out now, and
Yeah.
you can see why not a lot of people do it. But, however, you were saying, sir, yeah, just like, so when you started, were you cognizant of how much fun people were really having with the standard environment at that time?
Not even a little bit.
Man,
The closest I remember a couple of things from it. I remember a friend of mine named Joe when I got into it, and he had a card that I wanted. And so I was like, trades? And he was like, do you have Snapcasters? And no.
yeah.
All right, move on from that one. And I remember walking into a game store early on, seeing a draft, and seeing a player take a giant spider. Or no, let's see, what was it? Because this might have been right around a core set at the time. This might have been slightly after.
Okay.
But I remember that I remember one of the first things that I ever heard was Vampire Nighthawk has got to be one of the greatest uncommons of all time.
True story.
And so that sat with me for a long time, and I wildly overvalued Vampire
Sure.
Nighthawk
Yeah.
for like a year and a half after that. Because it's just anyone that spoke, I assumed that not only did they know more than me, which was likely true, but also everything that they said applied to everything, which was
Nice.
less true.
Yeah.
And they're like, Vampire Nighthawk's great. And I was like, every black deck that I build will now have Vampire Nighthawk. It's the best uncommon
Right.
in the game.
Because George said so.
Yeah. That one was also Joe, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe was apparently very involved in misleading me by accident.
Maybe on purpose.
Maybe on purpose.
Yeah, maybe on purpose.
I don't know. He's cooked up some apps. He's the player who built Build Your Own Upheaval, which is a modern deck.
Okay.
You do Painter Servant on green, then cast Hibernation.
Wow.
Yeah, which is return all green permanents to their owner's hands.
Jeez.
So it's Build Your Own Upheaval in modern. He's done both modern and legacy bombardment quite a bit. He's one of those wacky out of the box.
Who was the big painter player or big painter advocate? Was that Ruben or was that Jerry?
I think it was. If correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was. I think it was Van Gogh.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't actually know.
Nice.
That well, no, but
Nice save. Right. Yeah. I think it was. I think Ruben Bressler was like heavily advocating painter while Eldrazi Winter was going off or something like that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I do. I was actually a Affinity player.
Oh.
I guess eventually we'll be talking about when competing. But yeah, during that time,
This is a good segue. Yeah.
Bam. Most of the competition that I've done was with Modern Affinity. And I remember that time very well, the consideration of going for Painter Servant. I was not in favor of it.
Sure.
But I did. What did I end up doing? I think I might have ended up going for Ensnaring Bridges
Okay.
as my option for it. I did test Painter Servant quite a few times.
When in doubt, ensnare that bridge.
I mean, you had to do something against the deck.
Yeah.
There was also, that deck was so good.
So that is a good segue. So going from, like I said, just like the paint with all the crayons, all the colors with EDH, and that's even the chat's just like, that is such a cool way to start.
It was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
It was amazing. First deck was Riku. Second deck was Malfagor. Third deck was Quafa Hazid.
I had that a foil commander. I loved that commander.
Fourth deck was Edric Spymaster of Trest.
Oh, that was rude.
Fifth deck, this is going to where it start getting blurred because at a certain point, it was not uncommon for me to have between 5 to like 12 decks, and then they'd always fluctuate based on whatever commander that I had.
Yeah.
But I think at one point I built a Gaddock Teague deck as well to try that one out. I was really just mixing it up with whatever legendary that I had.
Yeah.
It was putting the cards in the deck, seeing what happened.
That's awesome.
Would not recommend it though. Like it was good for me.
Yeah.
But I was probably the kind of I perfectly fit into the type of personality that like if you give me that, I'll be excited. I do not think that is the average. I would not recommend getting your friends in with Commander, but maybe it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
When everything is always different, I think that is a little bit appealing for the people who are seeking to learn.
Sure.
Whereas sometimes when you're learning with the significantly more regular decks, it's beneficial that you have that consistency, but it also means that in their mind, there's a lot more repetitious gameplay because they don't see the nuance in a given situation.
Right. So let's talk about that transition. So what was the first format that you transitioned into? Was it more drafting, standard, or did you jump right into modern like you were saying with Affinity?
I jumped right into standard.
Okay.
Yeah, it was standard, and it was when Theros came out.
Okay.
So
it was a fun standard.
It was a really fun
like
standard.
that standard a lot. Yeah.
Underrated. I still look back on that one as actually my favorite one that I've played.
Yeah. Well, you didn't play with the Innistrad
standard. I did not play with the Innistrad standard.
That was perfect magic.
We're heading back to Ravnica.
Yeah.
That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but they screwed the pooch with the return to Innistrad, in my opinion. But that's
because that was really just return to Rise of the Eldrazi.
Exactly.
It was return to Zendikar, and they just called it Innistrad.
Yeah.
But I got in with standard. I was going for right before that. At the time, I was dating this girl that was playing standard at the time, and she was playing a deck right in the season before with that core set. She was in a GPT or something like that with the mono red deck. This is when it still had Hellrider and when it had a couple of those options.
Perfect.
And then right when they rotated out, I was getting into that one and watching that deck. I was like, that's pretty cool. Killing people fast is what I'm into.
Yeah, I miss mono red from that era.
It was good times. So I ended up building the deck that had that ideal curve of Rakdos Cackler into Burning Tree Fire Fist Striker, into, you know, either Boros Fanatic or Hammer of Perforos,
yeah,
or something like that, and then you go Fanatic of Mogus, win the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I got into that one, and then bam, like it clicked. Turns out I'm a mono red player. I didn't realize that up until this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got it at that point. It really sunk in, and so I got really heavily invested into Standard for the next probably 6 months.
Okay.
From that one, and then eventually moving into Boros Burn, which right when Born of the Gods came out, the deck became a lot more. I forget what exactly it was at this point that did it, but that was the deck where you had Boros, Charm, Shock, Skullcrack, War Leaders, Helix. You also had Young Pyromancer.
Yeah.
Just
sure.
the full scope of those cards was just it was nice.
The only thing good about Born of the Gods.
And that's where I learned that I loved Burn
as
the extension of loving mono red.
Sure.
So that was
from Riku Control, basically. And then it's just like, wow.
Yeah. It was Riku creatures, I think.
Yeah.
Even then, I was all about doubling the creatures.
Sure. But like you said, big mana bases, huge creatures, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then it was like going to Vegas for the first time, and you're just like, I want to cast all the things on turn 2.
Yeah. It was like, it's like going to Vegas and realizing that you have a problem. Suddenly, I was in a world that I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah. I survived 22 years of that. I don't know how, but.
And I had actually gotten into Modern slightly before this.
Oh, wow.
Before moving into Boros Burn.
Okay.
I actually first ever played Modern with my Standard deck, which eventually I moved into. It was very low to the ground red. That it was like a 5-color red deck.
Okay.
To where I would sideboard into. I didn't have any Stormbreath Dragons in the main. I didn't have any of that. It was more just almost a red Sly, a little bit less big mana, topping it at Fnatic, and then I'd sideboard in to Frostburn Weirds, into Stormbreath Dragon, into I think I even actually had I might have actually had the Reckoners.
Okay.
In the Boros Reckoners in the sideboard because they were like too slow, which in retrospect was probably wrong. But I was
smoke them if you got them.
Right. And so I'd sideboard into like the actual red devotion kind of thing.
Nice.
And so that was the first deck that I played in a Modern event with. It was actually at this store. It was when Modern was still barely picking up. I was the 8th person, which is what got me to do it. And then I ended up actually getting into the finals. I got second. I lost to someone. It was a fairly underdeveloped Modern meta.
Yeah, because I played here before. It's kind of nasty.
We've got a nice mix.
Yeah.
We've got tier 1 to tier 50.
Sure.
And so I ended up going in the finals against someone who was on green-white, and it was a deck that had Thrun. I think it was like I forget the name of it, but basically it had a bunch of like the trolls and swords. Okay. And like Batter Skull was in the deck and things like that. And I just managed to get over the top of that one. Wow. Through one reason or another. And I think it's because I had like shatter effects because it was Standard. Mm-hmm. And so I just happened to I don't quite man, I couldn't tell you. I don't know how I did it, but I managed. Yeah.
I was gonna say, because that sounds like shut down your deck.
Yep, it should have. It should have. Skullcracks probably took me the distance. Sure. One. So, or no, they did beat me. Never mind. Yeah, no, they crushed me. Okay. That's what it was.
I was going to say, I'm
second.
Like, this is like all the things that
I remember now. I was like, I had no game whatsoever against this.
The truth really comes out now, ladies and gentlemen.
I was like trying to remember, and I realized I was having these flashbacks of like getting hit by a Batter Skull and thinking like, boy, how do I beat this?
Sure.
I didn't.
Yeah.
That was my solution.
I was going to say, how do you do it? Because you can make a lot of money.
Yeah. So from there into Modern, I kind of developed into red lightning bolts, or not lightning bolts, ball lightnings. Oh wow! I was like, why are people running lightning bolt and lava spike with like ball lightning and Hellspark Elemental exist? They're so much more consistent.
Look at you!
And then a player named Vince, who actually is still here in Modern, still playing him on a white deck, sat down against me, and he had a Knight Tribal deck. Okay. And as I
played against this deck, I had allies.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
And the part that I remember is that a lot of Knights have first strike.
Yeah. Against a ball lightning deck. Yeah.
And it took me going like, finally, ball lightning swing. And he's like, block with Thalia? And I was like,
you got it.
I was like, so that's why people play Burn.
You're right.
I get it.
Yeah.
That was a level up moment for me.
That's pretty good.
And then from there into Affinity, and most of the competition that I've actually done was with Affinity.
Okay.
With the original deck list was designed by Melissa DeTora.
Okay.
It ran 4 Shrapnel Blast and 4 Galvanic Blast.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
She's a great deck builder. She's a very underrated deck builder.
Yeah, she was excellent. And this was a deck list for some time ago. It had when it was running, I'm spacing on it, but it's the 4 mana affinity 2/2.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not that important. The point being that that's where I started. I started building into more conventional versions of Affinity as it went on. Competed a lot with that deck, and then eventually really built into Modern post, because Standard with 3 color when the fetches were in.
Yeah.
It actually wasn't my favorite Standard.
Right.
I know a lot of people liked it. It wasn't my thing so much.
Sure.
I didn't really dig the being a requirement of multicolor.
Yeah.
And then since then, there was just some standards that didn't sit with me.
Well, especially with Theros too, because that rewarded for monocolor, and that was like one of the first, if you know, maybe since Torment Standard for, you know, again, if you're geriatric, you remember that, but you know, Theros had that cool monocolored thing going on, and that was fun. I liked when they did that, and you're right. The only time when they kind of forced you to be multicolor and heavy multicolor was that Return to Ravnica Innistrad thing.
That and like Chroma back in the day, the mechanic that Devotion was based off of, but Chroma was a massive failure. So
it was
didn't
a flop.
even feel that drop.
Exactly. So, and they're like, well, just pack rat. And, oh yeah, totally mono blue. So yeah, that's interesting. Going from like I said, and I just can't get over it, neither can the chat, going from, you know, that base of EDH first into jumping into that. So was there ever a time while you're playing, you know, Modern and like especially like Affinity and stuff like that, where you're just like, I kind of want to see where I could take this? You know, we all have, as Magic players, we all win a couple of table games, even a couple of FNMs, and we're like, ooh, I think I could make this into a living, right?
I just broke the meta.
Yeah. Exactly. Did you ever have that moment where you're like, I could be the next JTT?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So basically, eventually I became like a local end boss.
Okay.
Just because I played enough that I was really into it. I was
Nice.
doing Modern a lot. I was doing Standard a decent amount, especially when I was playing the Boros Burn. I was doing really well in Standard, translated that into Modern. And I did okay at a couple of the best that I've done at like Grand Prix was 11-4, which I'm very happy with.
Yeah.
But it's not like, you know, top 8ing or anything
That's
like
pretty
that.
sweet though. Yeah.
But that was the hottest run that I had. But at a certain point, I was really looking into like making the next step. You know, I play locally quite a bit. Am I willing to start traveling? Because traveling was something that was really big to me. My first Grand Prix, actually, Dylan sent me to.
Okay.
Basically for, you know, a bunch of stuff. At one point, he's just like, are you going to Vancouver? And it was like 2 days away or something like that.
You're like,
Grand Prix
I don't know.
Vancouver of 2016, I think, or something like that, maybe 2015. And I was like, no. And he's like, do you want to? And I was like, yes. And he's like, great. And he handed me some money. And I was like, okay.
Now this is happening.
I was like, better figure out a hotel if I planned a day too. Luckily, I didn't. So
Well, yeah.
I was able to not have to figure out a hotel.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, so that was a blast. And then the traveling part really appealed to me. So I started thinking about really starting to compete more.
Sure.
And this is almost exactly, it was around the same like 2-month period of like, do I want to become a grinder? Like, do I want to start really doing this?
Yeah.
And then someone was like, hey, TJ, you should do the there's this idea for a stream. You want to do the commentary? Yes.
Right?
Yes, I do. And I eventually kind of hit a crossroads of which direction do I want to go. And one, I had really enjoyed quite a bit, even though I was bad at it. My early commentary, don't ever go. I'm so glad.
I'm looking it up.
And a lot of it I don't think can be found anymore.
Actually,
but
we're cutting to that. I had it prepared. I'm just kidding. I really don't.
I would be, man.
You're like,
I remember in our third stream, someone in chat just went, what should I have for dinner tonight? And I spent 15 minutes of a match talking about how to make the perfect chicken salad.
That's when you know you're a good BSer. Right?
If you give me any subject, I can fill a time slot. Sure,
it takes a particular set of skills, as Liam Neeson would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is a lot of what kind of led me to that moment. I came to the crossroads, and at a certain point, I thought, I'm having a lot more fun. I can communicate with the community. I think this is what I'd rather be doing than doing the grinding.
Was that your first idea as far as content creation goes? Was someone coming up to you and saying, "Hey, do you want to call this game?" Or did you already have kind of a plan in mind that you wanted to kind of do?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, plan was zero. There was a guy here named Sean who has since moved to Alaska, and at one point we had a stream previously. And it had gone in. Basically, the idea, the intent at that time, and the intent when we brought it back was some people can't make it this week. You know, we want them to be able to keep up to date with the meta, see who's doing well, so that they can prepare next week. And so we thought, let's just stream it. Let's make it to where it's live. The 5 people who didn't make it, they can hop on their computer. They can keep an eye on it.
Sure.
So we just put I think it was actually the same thing, like a Logitech C920 over a table, and just broadcast it without an overlay, without any commentary, da-da-da.
We'll do it raw.
Right. And it was fine. Like, it wasn't used a whole lot, as you can imagine, because not having any sort of dynamic overlay, all that stuff, it just wasn't useful. So we ended up just taking it away.
Sure.
And then the idea floated back in from Sean, I think, again, maybe a year later or something like that. I don't know. We were already in the next location of the store. The store that we're in currently, Geek Fortress version 3.
Oh, okay.
Right
so
now.
I went to 2.0. I guess I didn't go to 1.0 then.
Yes.
Yeah.
1.0 was actually 2 doors down from that one.
Oh, okay.
And it was really a small shop.
Gotcha.
And so we did that. It was phenomenal. And then he came up with the idea. And the idea of like doing coverage came up. And it was actually Mason who was out there. He might not still be out there. But Mason was like, TJ and Mason doing commentary. And I was like, yes, because why not?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. And then we had this guy named AJ who was, kind of learning a lot of tech stuff and some basic overlay and graphic and all that stuff.
Sure.
So he was like, I'll put together an overlay because
Sweet.
he was into it and he had the mic and he had a camera. And so one thing leads to another. And we go live the first time with myself and a guy named Justin, who has since moved to Florida.
Oh, hotter there.
Hotter there. Yeah. Raining at the moment, to my knowledge. But that was like, we did that once and I was like, that was fun. All right. Time to do this again. And so we started that on a Wednesday. We started doing it every Wednesday. Eventually I wanted Saturday. Then I wanted Friday, then I wanted Monday, and it really just, but I very rarely had a plan. It was that I was put in the seat and I thought, okay, I'm here. Let's make it happen. Yeah. I liked it enough that I kept it going. And then at a certain point I was like, oh, I'm in charge of this. I'm the one that's like doing it.
Yeah.
And so I talked to Dylan. I was like, Dylan, the stream thing's kind of happening. Can I just have full control? Like, I get that, it's your shop, it's your name. I won't do anything. I'll run things past you.
Sure. But
can I just be in charge of it? Can I run it? Can I make sure that it can move in a direction, keep moving forward? It's like, yes. And I was like, great.
Yeah, that's ballsy, man. That's awesome.
And so then it just kept going. I had a lot of phenomenal people. AJ ended up moving away. A guy named David Bradbury, who was a tech genius, started helping out a lot of things. Since then, another guy named Ian has really helped out with an enormous amount of things. It was this perfect storm of someone with the equipment, a store owner who wanted it to happen, a couple of people who had the technological expertise to bring it together, and me, who was stubborn and hyped enough to make sure that it happened every week on time when it needed to happen.
Awesome.
And it was this perfect storm that came together. And I only really started developing a plan maybe a year in, kind of thing. It was just kind of kept happening and I was just rolling with it. And now, if you were to ask me what my plan is as far as just things on the stream, I could talk to you for another hour about all the ideas that I have, and it's just a matter of making those ideas real. There's a camera right there.
Yep.
That is a Canon Rebel T5 that is going to be replacing all of our C930Es that are out on there.
Sure.
So that we can stream at 1080, so that then we can have a card spotter that's a lot more dynamic, so that then we can eventually replace that. I could go on.
That is production value that my viewers are not used to. So
neither am I.
MTG Young Mage in the chat says the rain did stop in Florida.
So
you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case you were wondering. Were you consuming any content at that time? Or is that just something that's kind of been newer to you? Or are you even consuming Magic content? Because I know that it's way different because you are, a content creator, but you do work in the realm of more of the competitive play side, and that's a completely different beast. So I don't know. Are you consuming any Magic content?
I was not then.
Okay.
I told you this before we went live. I was on dial-up until I was 19. I'm currently 26.
Okay.
So this was not too long ago.
I could almost be your dad if it was weird and like Game of Thronesy, but it's not. It's weird now that I said that.
It's all good. It's all good. And from there, I got onto a mobile hotspot.
Sure.
Which also is not that
I've been there.
Watching streams and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's hard.
So I was actually watching a remarkably small amount of content.
Okay.
At the time that I really started. My content intake has increased pretty heavily since then, where almost all when I'm home, usually I've got a stream on in the background. Even if I'm not active in it, it's floating around to some degree, whether it's on the main TV or on the computer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, no, not a lot. I wasn't even really watching an enormous amount of like SCG or Magic streams. I watched them like when I'm at the store because that's where the high-speed internet was.
Sure.
And so it was not something that really happened in a lot at the time. And I kind of feel bad.
Why?
Because it was like, in a lot of ways it felt like I was just throwing content out there without like paying my dues to the people who are already there.
But that's pure. I see what you're saying, but I think that's a pure form because, I do a lot of other stuff other than Magic. And now that I do movie reviews and stuff like that, I tend to not watch other movie reviewers because I don't want to be influenced by that. So that makes a lot of sense. And that's why I think, you probably found your voice and found so much success kind of early on the way you did it.
Maybe. I think a lot of it is that we got lucky with our production value.
Luck is always there, too.
The production value brought a lot of people in. Hopefully my enthusiasm really compensated for my lack of skill for a long time.
Hey, it goes a long way, man.
You
are charming.
The fact that I could not they could go natural order to progenitus, and like what I should say is that's natural order to progenitus. What I'd say was wow.
Right.
That's it. And I just like
you were like that Randy Bueller bit, but for everything.
Yeah, but like it's like if Randy Bueller didn't even say that it was the lightning scale, like she was just like, "Oh my god," and then stopped talking.
Yes, that's perfect though. There's definitely a market for that, and I'm included. I would watch the hell out of it.
Oh, jeez. One of these days, I'll do an entire stream where we never once show you the match.
Okay.
I'll do one where it's nothing but me reacting to them.
Again, people make a very good living off of that kind of content.
Actually, that might be a fun idea.
I know, right? This is we're brainstorm brewing right here.
It's terrible, but it's good.
So tell me about, going from commentating games here to now you're on the road. Now you're doing GPs. Now you're with Channel Fireball, for more or less, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen?
That was me bugging them a lot. That was a really common theme with it. So early on, when I started doing this, I would go to Grand Prix, and basically I found whoever was on the coverage team, usually Rich. I would talk to Marsh, I'd talk to some other people, and I'd just be like, look, I'm starting to do content creation, I'm doing commentary, but I want to be doing what you're doing. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And then I listened to them. Like I would talk to, Megan and Maria from Magic the Amateuring.
Sure.
I would talk to, at one point I saw Ryan Overturf and Matthias Hunt at a GP.
Yeah.
I think it was in San Antonio, if I remember correctly. And I'd ask them. And basically anybody who was a content creator, I just started asking them, like, what did you do to get into the position that you are in where you're actually the one producing like this content at the top with that endorsement? And I kept bugging them. I would talk to Rich at basically every event. And then one time at Grand Prix Portland, I had talked to him. At this point, he was pretty used to me, possibly. If you asked him now, he might say, honestly, I had no idea who he was. He caught me at the right time, which is also fine. But I ended up saying, like, this is what and here's a quick tip to anybody who intends to do this. Every time that you go to one of them, especially the ones who are in charge, you'll say, I want to do coverage. And they will probably ask you immediately, great, what have you done?
Sure.
That will be the first question.
Build a resume.
most people don't have an answer to that. Like realistically. And also
I made a sandwich today.
Right. Like, I mean, the realistic truth is that there's less than a dozen live Magic streams.
Absolutely.
On Twitch.
Yeah.
Like, it is very difficult to say what you have done because that means it's not currently out there. Something that I intend to change, but that's maybe for later. I don't know. Yeah. I'm getting very off.
You're fine.
You had this flow chart kind of worked out, and I have gone off the rails.
This is fantastic.
So
the chat is loving.
Oh yeah. So they'll ask you what you've done, and I was able to say, oh well, I do commentary 4 times a week for 16 hours every week from a store in Washington.
Yeah.
For 3 different formats. That was a different answer than they normally get.
Yeah.
I'm like, I do standard, legacy, modern, Canadian Highlander. You throw it at me, I've got it. Which in my mind is how it went. What I probably said was like, I do a stream. Right. I do a stream. But so he ended up talking. He ended up giving me actually about like 10 to 15 minutes of, it was a right time in the round. He was kind of between needing to do things. And he was talking about this whole mentality of, you're doing a great job of like, if that is true, then you're doing a great job of being able to have a resume. That it's a matter of doing something that makes you different than someone else.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you are the person who, like me, probably my main selling point is that I'm almost disgustingly enthusiastic at any given time. On other situations,
you'll have infectious though. I've smiled more in this Hive Mind. My face hurts.
That's okay. Yeah, it's fine. You get through the pain eventually.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe you're the person who. One example that he gave me actually was like, maybe you're the person who every time that a card hits the battlefield, you knew who the artist was.
Nice.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, is that relevant to
Magic Man Sam? Right?
Yeah. It doesn't. But if you can develop something that to where people say, who's that commentator? The one that always says the artist. Like,
yeah. I see what you're saying. Everyone has a kind of a niche thing where like Patrick Sullivan has his thing. You have Cedric Phillips.
Patrick Sullivan's the grumpy old man. Riley Knight is the person who just says the most ludicrous
said it.
things.
I didn't say this.
Patrick Sullivan tell you he's a grumpy old man.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you've got all these people, and like they've got something, and even if it's not something that. Not to say that but it's not something that's particularly remarkable. This doesn't need to be their trait that they put on a resume. This doesn't need to be their X factor.
Right.
It needs to be something that just when you think of someone, are you thinking of, a generic soda that can be found in like a prop shop for a movie?
Sure.
Or are you thinking of the product placement of Coca-Cola that when you come away from that, you thought of the Coca-Cola? Or was it just another thing?
Right.
Right. And so having that sense of branding for yourself was another thing that he really steered me towards, continuing to do so. And then eventually, last year, I got an email, which, man, I remember reading that email, actually, which was like, what are you doing at GPCL?
Oh, man, you woke up the house, didn't you?
It's like, nothing. Being there, hopefully.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so, Sunday I jumped into that one. It was kind of this trial run thing because part of the conversation was, I was able to bug them again when I was at Pro Tour Ixalan in Albuquerque with actually Sam Tang, who you were doing this recently with.
Absolutely.
We went there to do that third-party coverage of Team Metagame Gurus. And I was talking to the coverage team, as I did at every single chance, until I bothered them. And then I'd leave. That was the other thing. Don't bug them. Don't bug
know when
them.
to leave.
That's a very important fact. You can be like, I'm TJ. And when they go, oh, you're out.
Yeah.
Don't give them any time to actually say no.
Right.
Get out of there.
That's awesome.
And so, we're talking to him, and he's like, it's rough having like the seats, Yeah. And eventually it was this whole idea. And actually, I was just kind of on this trial run. I was only meant to do about 4 rounds or something at Seattle just to jump in, see what I can do.
Yeah.
Get out. And then they ended up giving, after the first couple, they offered me the semifinals to do a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then after that one, I got the email, which meant that I could go to Sacramento.
So awesome.
I'll have some more this year. So
how were the nerves on that first? Okay, kid, here's your big shot. Here's your chance.
They were shot.
Yeah. You're done.
I was on another level of just. It's still something that whatever. Words.
Yeah.
We do them professionally.
We're not calling a game right now. We're talking.
Thank goodness I don't speak professionally, because otherwise I'd be in trouble. But it still felt completely surreal, kind of just being up on that stage. I remember I got there in the morning on Sunday. Sunday was the only day that I did it. It was for Standard. I went up to the stage. I wasn't scheduled to be on there until a little bit later. Or actually, it was on Saturday that I got there and I did this. And I went up and I was like, hey, you know, I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm a little bit uncertain. Like, can you give me just a quick sense of what I can do? And they're like, great, come on up. And they had me like put on the headphones and stuff. And I remember like my hands started shaking, just being like up there and with the headset on, and like Rashad in my ear so that I could understand. Like Rich was like, all right, so one thing that's going to be weird is that you'll be talking, and that someone will speak into your ear. Right. And this is something that most people have no experience with, where you need to be talking, prepared to have another thing to say, and listening to what they're saying, preparing what you need to say.
Do you have any broadcasting background before this?
Zero.
Wow.
100%. I am 100% self-taught.
Dude, that's awesome. You're like Jim Carrey, you know, late in life when he found out that he wanted to be a painter. It's just like, this is crazy. Like, this doesn't happen. So,
I mean, I really hope that it's not like because Jim Carrey is not known for being a painter.
He is now.
He's not. Right. When you think Jim Carrey, you don't think, oh, the painter?
The painter. Jim Carrey, the painter.
No, if he gets that point, then hopefully I'll be like Jim Carrey. I don't want people to be like, you know, TJ, like, oh, the permit tech. No, jeez.
Dude, that's incredible stuff though, man. And since you've been doing this now, and it's kind of young in the career, so to speak, but what's been your favorite moment or memory from one of these GPs? Or
my favorite moment is probably the wrongest that things have gone with it. Friday night, there was the VIP party at Grand Prix Seattle, which of course I messaged Channel Fireball and begged to be in.
Yeah, please guys, let me in.
I was like, I'm part of the coverage team and I want to go because I need to talk to Paul Gion because I'm going to do coverage with him. And that's the chance that I've got to talk to him beforehand. Sure. And they're like, come on by. And I was like, yes, all right. Did it. So I go there and I find Paul and I was like, Paul, I know we're like sitting here at kind of like a dinner thing, but if you have time tonight, I want to sit down with you. I want to get to the point where we are conversational, comfortable, just talking to each other. Right. Before there's a camera on it live.
It's very important.
And
very important.
He was like, absolutely. Let me do it. We'll talk in half an hour. I like this time. Great. So we sat down, we talked, we went over a bunch of stuff about what his mentality is with coverage. You know, what are his priorities from the color commentator? What is he really looking for me to give him? Sure. And I talked a little bit about my experience, and obviously he's done this a lot more. So I was trying to get out, you know, what kind of things that I could take from that and actually put it into coverage. And at one point I was like, you know, and I guess like one of the things is, what do we do? Or at one point he goes, you know, the only thing that really these things don't apply for is if something like really bad happens, like if there's just a big judge call and things like have to happen, but that never happens.
Never happens,
and
right?
Like, that was the end of that one. I was like, what do we do during that? He's like, that never happens.
And of course.
So we had no preparation. So we just moved on from it. Yeah. And then.
Let's see where this is going.
So, yeah, there was a player who was, it was. Yeah. It was black-red up against a blue control deck. I think it was Esper. It might have been blue-white. Okay. And they played Nezahal, the Primal Tide. And what I said was, and I could have said a whole lot of things. What I could have said was, boy, that Nezahal will be very difficult to eliminate here in game one. Right. Before sideboarding. What I said was, it will be impossible to remove that because he has 0 unlicensed disintegrations. Oh my God. To which Paul said, he has 0 unlicensed disintegrations. I said, yes, 0 unlicensed disintegrations. And then the player untapped and cast an unlicensed disintegration.
He's like, what? Dude, that's awesome.
Anything else that I would have said, I would have never noticed. Paul would have never noticed. Right. And immediately I was like, oh. And then, and immediately, like, we were talking, and then I hear in my ear, like, we're going to go to a different game. And I was like, oh. It went wrong.
Oh, no.
Wrong. So what
happened? But this is your favorite memory.
Yes. Because we got through it fine. Like, we jumped to another match. We were able to get the update. Sure. We had the text little thing coming in.
Did you take off the mic or the headphones, or was just like 0? 0? No.
Yeah. And
playoffs.
So we were like, boy, maybe we have the wrong deck list because I maybe had that, but they went and it's because someone who was listening to it heard that and they were like, oh, and so they stopped the match and they were like, we're told that you have 0 of those. Turns out that it basically was a misregistration. They ended up getting the game lost. It wasn't like a big thing.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. We went to another match, and then eventually we ended up coming back, and we were like, da-da-da, this is what happened. This is the thing. And it was basically the fact that everything that could have gone wrong in that moment did, and it was fine. We didn't stop. Awesome. We didn't stop talking. We kept going. We didn't lose our flow. We didn't let it totally throw us off. And so that was like the memory in which I was like,
I could do this.
Yeah, that was kind of it. I was like, things have gone wrong, and we have not, caught on fire.
Sure.
So let's just keep on going. Like at this point, things can happen, and it won't be to the script every time, but we can keep pushing forward. And then, I was with Jacob Van Lunen for Nationals, and we had another thing. It was this big judge call that ended up taking about 10 minutes, and it was fine because we were able to just. It's 10 minutes. Obviously, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. So this is also a control matchup. It's been really grindy, and you've got it's Esper versus Blue Black. You're gonna be here for a bit. You already were, and you've got 10 minutes to fill. And it was this judge call that ended up basically being fine, but it's that the player hadn't drawn the card yet. Blah blah blah. It was this big thing that wasn't actually that big of a thing.
Sure.
But Twitch chat really likes to get up in arms about pointless stuff. I love Twitch chat. Don't get me wrong.
Please don't fire me.
Anytime that you get a collective mass, it is very difficult once a ball is rolling to stop it. It's a very momentum-based thing. And at a certain point, it is impossible to reason with when the soundbite of wrong is so much shorter then it's like, all right, well, you have to type a paragraph to refer to that. And it just gets very difficult. But anyway, it went fine. We filled up the time. We talked about a whole mess of things, and then the game kept going, and it still kept being a whole mess of things. But even that one, as it happened, I was like, I've been where things are wrong. We're gonna be fine, Jake.
You're taking the left turn.
This may be my second show, but let me tell you, I've messed some things up. So, and then I felt really proud. You may have seen in one of the recent judge updates, coverage is now allowed to stop a match if they saw things.
That's awesome.
I like to.
You're that baseball?
I have heard from a resource that I was the straw that broke the camel's back on that one because of the Seattle thing. So forever in my mind, that's the Red Baron rule, is that coverage is allowed to stop the match
awesome.
if they need to. It's not officially or to anyone else.
It is now.
It is now.
It is now.
But I was apparently, allegedly, rumored the straw that broke the camel's back when I was like, they have no unlicensed disintegrations.
Oh man! So I mean, you were ever the Magic contrarian. You started with EDH, and your favorite thing was when things went wrong. You are absolutely a delight. So let's talk a little bit about your own personal streaming with Red Baron MTG.
Yes,
you do streaming gameplays and all that. What's the future of that, or are you going to kind of focus now more on commentary? Or are you going to do both?
I actually want to focus on that one a lot more.
Okay.
In the future. It's been difficult right now because of my schedule with traveling and with everything else.
Sure.
But eventually one of my plans is to move a little bit more into a producer-director realm with the commentary here. Mostly just to enable other things. I want, in my perfect world, I'd be doing 3 different podcasts, a couple of different streams, all that kind of stuff. Right. Obviously, that's not immediately feasible. But eventually, I do want to stream that one more. I'm actually going to be picking up a laptop here pretty shortly to be able to stream a lot more mobily, and it's going to be a bit more when I'm traveling or even during hour breaks or kind of things. Right now, being contained to the computer is the most difficult part of actually doing it because I love doing the streaming. I've been doing a little bit of Limited lately. Previously, I've done a lot of Red decks. Arena was one that I was really big into for a bit. But all things... I do intend to keep developing that one. And a big setback that I've had is that so much of my experiences in broadcasting, talking about other things, that it's almost like I need to be the same brand, but almost like a different flavor. It's almost like the idea of, I've spent so much time developing, just to use the similar thing before, like Coca-Cola, and now I need to develop Cherry Coke.
Sure. You want accents.
I need to accent, because if I do the same thing there and talk about my plays in the third person, then that's not particularly compelling in any way.
Sure.
But it also can't be like, all right, time for Pepsi. And so
or something completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
So that shift
Yeah.
has been something that has been a really interesting realm. And hopefully when I'm able to be doing that stream a lot more, then I can have a lot more focused time and ability to really reflect on that one and develop that, because that's been something that has been more of a challenge than I expected to, at a certain point, I'm going to be genuine no matter what, because frankly, anything else is exhausting.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
And I'm already exhausted on a pretty regular basis while also being uncomfortably energetic. But I mix that.
It's a fun dichotomy.
But to be anything other than particularly like myself would just drain me.
Yeah.
So it's going to be that, but it's figuring out how to, sometimes you've got a picture, right? And it's how you frame it. Do you put a larger frame that allows it to kind of have that accent around it? Do you go for that close one? Do you even like crop it and go for a more interesting thing? So figuring out the frame that I want to put on that one has been an interesting realm to explore that I'm still working on.
Well, it's a niche too, right? Because the at this point, the creator, it's an ocean now, and it's so saturated. Everyone's doing Magic content and everything, but to have your own voice is extremely important. And like you said, if you're trying to be anything less than yourself and you come off as less ingenuous, people are going to see right through it. At this
people
point.
Spot fake really
fast,
these days.
really fast, and it takes a while, And I was on the other end of the spectrum where I was just like, I want to be like this content creator and this, and I was like trying to pick. I'm gonna mash these all together and do this, and now it's just like, and that just didn't work at all.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, yep, I'm gonna talk about movies and Magic, and it seems to be doing better because it's stuff that I'm passionate about.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie. How long do you have?
Now who's the interviewer?
Oh, geez.
This is my show.
This is one of the questions on the game. So maybe, it's not, it's ask the interviewer anything, but you have to roll on it. But no, I mean, I
get a freebie.
Do you have another couple hours?
I might actually.
Actually, no, but
I'm having fun.
This is a blast. Let's talk about your newest venture, though.
Yeah.
And you talked about podcasts, like you said, you do like being a part of podcasts.
Yes.
And it is hard, very time consuming, especially with your schedule. Just to even think about this happened. This was like 2 months in the making.
Yeah.
You and I sitting in the same room. It's just schedules are so insane, but you managed to make the new podcast happen.
Yep.
How has that been? You have it's the Ponder podcast.
Yep.
Todd Stevens and Melvin the Muppet, Ruben Bressler's favorite content creator, if you didn't know that.
Melvin the Muppet is everybody's favorite Magic Muppet. And he's a lot of people. The utter uniqueness of Melvin the Muppet is just something that I can't even compete with. He's on another level when it comes to like, well, what's his story? He's a Muppet.
He's a Muppet.
I need 3 words, and you've already, whether you hate it or love it, you have formed your opinion. if I were to be like, who's this teaching? And I was like, he's kind of excited. You'd be like, but
right.
But I'm just like, he's a Muppet. You've already been like, I'm interested. Or like, I don't go for that funny nonsense. I'm not into it. I'm off it.
It sounds so sticky. But I mean, this was incredible, right? Like, how did you guys get introduced? Because I assume that getting introduced to a Muppet has its own set of challenges.
The handshake's tricky.
It is.
Yeah.
Right.
So we actually were all part of the same stream team. Early on, there's one called the Rogues Gallery. And that one was originally created by, I'm going to try really hard here it was myself, Boot to the Head, Amorph CS, and Melvin the Muppet were the first 4 that were like, we're kind of small creators. Wouldn't it be interesting if we built a group that was like centralized on just trying to get some people who are new to streaming, make it to where we can kind of provide some resources to them. We're new. Let's just try and help each other out.
That's awesome.
And early on into it, we then brought in like Z Magic 94, mm-hmm. Jamie Topples is a part of it, Holy Diva is a part of it. There's this whole cast that I could just list them all. But the point being, eventually Todd Stevens was also a part of it. So that's actually how the 3 of us met, is that Melvin and I met because we were both streaming on Twitch, and Melvin actually was the one who reached out to me. That was the 4th person in on that group.
Mm-hmm.
And then we eventually reached out to Todd. Todd showed up in the stream at one point, and he's like, da, 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 da. I was like, oh, it's Todd Stevens. Like, this is the guy from the SEG tour. And then I hopped into his stream when he first started streaming. And he's like, TJ, that's the guy who does the commentary.
Nice.
And so we started talking that way. And so we've all been talking for probably 2 years or so at this point. And then Todd and I always wanted to do a podcast for at least maybe a year or so. We've just lightly talked about it. You know, it's always been something that's been on our mind. And so when we first started going into it, we had the mentality of doing something a little bit different. Not to disparage them, by the way. Like basically the next thing that I'm going to say is the 3 categories that just about every Magic podcast falls into. They will all be either interviews. Yep. What happened this week, or interviews. Or I'm sorry, strategy. Right. Interviews is the first one. Sorry, or strategy.
Strategy. Right. That was finance. I guess that kind of falls in the same thing.
That one is one that, like, the ones that I think are a little bit different, but I'm also completely unqualified to talk about MTG finance. Sure. Hashtag MTG finance.
My co-host on one of my movie shows is a great MTG finance guy. That's Jason Alt.
I don't think anybody who owns 250 Tibbles is like allowed to ever talk about like making good investments.
Sure.
So they all fall into that. Yeah. And it's very difficult to break out of those. But I think that those 3 categories are the foundation of Magic content.
Sure.
And a lot of content is still very much in its early days. It's still very much in the beginning of it, and you need those foundations to build on top of. We wouldn't have anything, you know, if you didn't have something rock solid, a formula that worked. But we wanted to go with something a little bit different, a little bit beyond it, a little bit blurred. And the model that I came up with was basically, I'm sure many people have this, but I certainly do, is that when the game store closes, the tournament ends, you stand outside for another hour and a half because you're irresponsible, and you all just talk about anything. You just fill the air with words, whether it's about strategy or about that or whatever.
Right.
It was just, I wanted to take that conversation that I think many people are familiar with and make it into a podcast form, which is something that has been the intent. We're still... You know, we're now 18 episodes in as of tomorrow.
Nice.
I need to edit that tonight. But we're still kind of finding that flow. But the whole idea is to be something a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more casual, something that just feels like you're having a conversation that is friends. A little bit more, you know, you gain something from it in knowledge, but it's more about accepting the idea that we're trying to entertain more than teach, that we're trying to be there just to have a good time with friends than anything else.
Does that present problems of trying to streamline shows? You know, like trying to plan out, you know, topics for shows? Because it sounds kind of like loosely a topical podcast, but does that create problems that way to try to hone it in and be like, okay, we're just going to talk, but we do want to touch on these kind of points?
So I've seen show notes for podcasts. They're generally pretty detailed. You know, you've got this whole like thing. Our show notes are something else.
They're literally in crayon.
We've got a Google spreadsheet amongst each other, and like each time it's just like there is the frame of the spreadsheet,
sure,
and it's just things scattered around to where like we'll toss in a little thought there, and like, but then so much of it is that we want some of it to feel fresh, that we won't entirely tell each other like what our thoughts are on something, because we want to keep some of our reactions like real, and we want to keep our ability to take it on a tangent or a bird walk or whatever fairly live. And so we try not to plan a lot of it.
Yeah.
It'll be like, this week I want to talk about limited coverage. Specifically, these are 2 things that like I'm going to touch on. And the other 2 are like, okay, and they're going to figure out what it is that they want to say. But otherwise, that's the plan that we've got.
Sure.
We're working on actually getting better about that eventually. But so far, it's been this very kind of keeping it fluid, which has been in some ways a positive, and I think in some ways kind of a drawback for our level to stay focused, but also kind of keep it fluid.
Yeah.
It's been interesting. And all 3 of us are so used to the live format. We're used to the idea that even in the early episodes, probably the first like 14 of them or something like that, we were always talking as if we were live.
Okay.
And so
the no net kind of
net, and it took us like a while to be like, you know, once someone's done talking, we can all sit there silently until we know who's about to talk next. Or you can just edit that out,
right?
Or if you mess up, you don't power through. You could just go blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I
and
think,
insert.
and so we would just
flesh
like
cut. Yeah.
power through everything because all three of us are just so
Used to the life.
trained in the mentality of keep pushing forward, doing exactly what it is that we're doing now.
Sure.
And so that's been another really unique thing because I'm of the conditioning of if you throw a question to me, my mind's like, these are the three answers. This is the one I'm going to say. Vomit the words. Get it out there.
Right.
You've been waiting for 2.5 seconds, you fool. What are you doing?
Sure.
So it's been an interesting dynamic to explore.
It's totally true because like on these live shows, if for whatever reason, I kind of operate the same way where I just don't, I know there's no safety net. So you just, I don't know if it's being more, like subconsciously thoughtful or whatnot, but when I'm doing an edited show, I'm a mess. I can't get a thought out. I'm saying things like messing up on regular words and it's just word vomit. But when we're doing stuff like this, it's not only just like powering through, it just seems more natural. And that's a great thing. And it is a delightful show. If I could say delightful.
I say it all the time.
If that's okay.
I'm a fan.
If you're not offended by that term for your podcast, but I think it is. It's nice and light it's what the community needs. It's definitely filling a role because it can get, this community is it's the best community in any other gaming
top tier
community, right? But that kind of relax, put your feet up and just listen to a conversation is filling a much needed hole. And that's great. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. We did a bonus episode. This little bit of a self-plug.
Sure. We
released a bonus episode this week on Monday, which is actually kind of outside that format. It was basically Todd and I, we were watching the Pro Tour on Saturday and we were like, you want to talk about the Pro Tour on Sunday? He's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. So the second that the broadcast went down, I immediately got Todd on the, just immediately we were on the phone. We spent, it was 2 hours talking about it.
Sure.
This was the first time that I got to learn how to edit a podcast. So I was up for the next 6 hours.
Yeah.
Until 2 a.m, basically, getting it posted. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was a good time. So a lot of fun. The podcast is so interesting. And I find at one point Melvin mentions like, boy, you sound like Jeff Goldblum. And that is so much more true. You were talking about how when you're doing the edit one that you'll edit, you can't get a word out. And when I'm recording the podcast, sometimes I'll sit there and I'll think about the things that I want to say.
Right.
And then I'll say them. But it's in this way where I'm kind of thinking as I'm going.
Right.
I got into this without a plan.
Sure.
And then nature finds a way.
Yes.
And so
Jeff Goldblum impressions are always welcome on this show.
And so you won't always find your way. It won't always make it into the edited version because it's just like silence out.
Right.
Silence out.
Is he doing a bit? Is TJ doing a bit right now? Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that one doesn't always make it, but even when I'm doing some other stuff or when sometimes I'm doing the Grand Prix one.
Sure.
And I'm still at a point where boy, I don't want to misspeak on theirs. If I misspeak on mine, I slap my own wrist.
Right.
So I'll just be tight. I'm like, so Jake, when you are approaching a format, do you move it along, push it?
So I need a promise from you. I need a cutting room floor ponder podcast where you just throw in all of those kind of brain farts and whatnot, and that will be the show. It could be a 50th anniversary. I want credit for this.
An unedited one?
Yeah.
Well, that makes my life easier.
Chop together a greatest hits is what I'm saying. All the stuff that you're cutting out, make that one show. Just edit all those pieces together.
I don't have time for that.
Here's your podcast.
If someone else wants to take the time for it, I'll talk to them. We can probably send them out all of our stuff. But
I would volunteer, but I hate editing. That's why I do live stuff. Oh man. So what is the short and long-term Magic the Gathering career goals?
Okay. I'm gonna preface this really quickly.
Sure.
By the end of this, it's going to sound like I'm trying to be a little bit arrogant, and I have no intention of that, by the way. So it's just gonna be like my goals and the intention, and I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but that's fine. But so for short-term goals, this stream in the short to midterm. I see this one continuing to develop, getting a little bit more, but really I want to turn this into a realm in which I can train more in a more focused fashion other people to do commentary and turn this into almost a sort of training grounds for commentary, allow it to run themselves, maybe even get some other stuff. I've thought about having a live like talk show version similar to something like this.
Sure.
A little bit less Q&A, but more just
let's just talk about stuff. Hey, riffing off each other.
Yeah, like Super Bowl halftime show, except just Magic, have things like that.
You now know a guy. Not saying, but I'm saying.
I mean, that's true. I spent my whole life wondering if eventually I'd know a guy.
You now know a guy with a tree tattoo. Let me just say, I lived in Vegas for 22 years. Not once did I think about getting dice or cards tattoo. I'm here for less than a year. I'm like, I love trees. I'm in Washington.
It does that to you.
Sorry.
No,
so we're talking about your goals, though.
When it rains, all of a sudden you're like, rain, and the rest of the country's...
There's so little rain, or so much like less rain than I thought there would be.
We are in the world of moderate climate. Yeah, it never rains heavy, but it's overcast and misty a lot.
That's what I need.
Yeah, it's a good place.
Yeah.
It's a good place.
All right, sir.
Other goals, in the short term, I want to get the stream developed. I would like to become, right now, one of my goals is to basically become in the number 2 Marshall Sutcliffe backup when it comes to North American play-by-play.
Sure.
Commentators.
They got to retire sometime.
Right. That's true. That's true. But eventually, I want to solidify myself into the commentary. If I can find my way doing commentary, once a month, maybe twice a month, and my mind will explode with excitement. But if I can do it once a month, that would be yes.
Yeah.
So continuing to do that one, push forward with the home stream, push forward with the podcast. One of the things that I'm really focusing on the short term is starting to try and monetize some of the things that I've been doing.
Sure.
So I recently got a sponsorship from Inked Gaming.
Great. I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it. Red Baron 10 for 10% off.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Promo codes.
It's kind of fun. If you're going to sell out, do it to a good company.
It is fun. Yeah. Anyways, now I'm contractually obligated to do this for the rest of the show.
Cool shoulder pad.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
I'm trying to bring those back in. 1980 somewhere.
So working on that monetization is something that I've worked on. I have made remarkably little money from this. Everything that I've ever made from doing this Geek Fortress commentary, I've put back into the stream. So I have not made anything.
Right.
I have not bought a meal with the money that I've made from doing Geek Fortress, all that stuff. So moving into that realm is something that I'd like to do because eventually it is a very small percentage of people who actually get the opportunity to.
Yeah. And
I recognize that going into it. But if I can position myself to be someone who can create content that can entertain as my job, then I would like to take that opportunity. So traversing into that realm, I'm starting to really kind of take the first steps into a very focused direction with that. Long-term goals. When it comes to commentary, the long-term goal, and this is going to be the part where it comes across maybe a bit.
I was going to say, where's the arrogance? Because I didn't get it there.
I intend to be the best commentator that Magic has, and I intend to be the person that moves it into the next era of commentary.
Awesome.
Magic right now we've been broadcasting it for 10, maybe 15 years, and really maybe less than 10 in the current format. And if you look at things like football and baseball, the commentary has been happening for over 100 years. And we are still very much at the beginning stages of what this world even is. And there's going to be these moves forward. There's going to be these steps taken. I intend to be a part of that, and I intend to be the best. I don't like investing this level of I have put heart, and I've put soul, and I've put time. I've put a lot of stuff into this. And I'm not saying that it owes me anything, but the reason why I'm doing that is because I think that I can.
Yeah.
And
fair. That's totally fair.
And honestly, my hope is that if I'm not the best, that means that there's someone better. And that's good. I'm going to do everything in my power to position myself that. And then if someone comes from behind and beats me, great.
Good on them.
And if someone stays ahead of me, also great. That it's not this whole idea that I think that I am the best right now. But the only way that I can move forward is with the intent that every step that I'm taking, it's because there's more to do. There's up to go.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing here. Like when I'm doing the Geek Fortress stream, a lot of the changes that we make, I have the wonderful opportunity of being the producer, being the director, being the main host, which means that anything that I want goes. Like realistically, if I want to make something happen, I don't need to go through a bunch of people. I don't need to get permission. I don't need to like, you know, figure out, is the budget going to this or this, or it's like, I know what I want to put the budget into and it's going to be this.
Yeah.
You know? And then I have the fortune of also being on a localized scale. What I have doesn't need to be transported. What I have doesn't need to be translated for thousands of people.
Sure.
What I have, you know, is local, which means that I can try things, I can test things, and my intent here is to try pushing the envelope in areas that can't be pushed elsewhere to explore that realm. So, you know, going into to different ways to do layouts, different ways to present information, different ways to just have technology that allows us to try new things is daunting because you're going up against people who have, you know, significantly more resources.
Yeah, sure.
But because of some of those flexibilities that we have, you know, if we pick our battles, then we can move forward in directions that hopefully can pave the way for them to then see what that end goal can look like and take that step forward.
Yeah. I don't think that came off as arrogant at all. I think that came off, if you're not striving to be the best, or at least one of the greatest things at the craft that you want to do, then why the hell are you doing it? So I think that's, if you didn't have that mindset, then you'd be doing it wrong.
Kind of, yeah. It's interesting because there are a lot of tasks that you can go into with the idea. Like, I don't mean to sound that making an action with the intent to be average is not actually an inherently bad thing. I don't think it is. Like, if I didn't do anything that I assumed that I'd be average in, I would have a whole lot less that I've done. I'd have a whole lot less that I've put my time into.
But how about passionate things?
But even, yeah. And I think in this case, it's like, this is the battle that I have chosen,
right,
so to speak, in my mind. When it comes
I'm dying
down
on
to
this sword, dude.
This is it. This is the hill that I'm climbing. This
Yeah.
is the one that, like, I've got my flag in hand.
Yeah.
I think that I have the tools to do it, and I think that I have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take this flag and I'm gonna stick it in at the top. Like,
sure.
That's where I'm walking. And then when I get to that top of that hill, I'm gonna climb to the top of the flag, and then I'm gonna see what's the highest hill that I can see from here that looks a lot like this hill.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pick up that flag and I'm gonna go to that one because this is what I can do. And every single time that I've done this, the more that I do it, the more that I've become a part of this community, the more that I've learned how to present my ideas, the more that I've learned how to speak. And I'm actually starting to investigate formal broadcasting, like learning or training or whatever it might be.
This is the end result. It's not that great.
Right. You know, then it's all, every single step that I've taken into this has made me more excited and more passionate, and never once have I taken a step forward and be like, gosh, this isn't what I thought it would be. It's been more than I thought it would be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it becomes an addiction.
I
really.
can't imagine. I can't imagine what I would be doing if I wasn't doing this. Yeah. I can't. And I could think about it. I'd be like, I guess I'd go home and make dinner. Like, that's not that bad. That's a good life. That's good living.
People need dinner.
But I cannot physically imagine myself getting off of work, you know, like, go run to the gym, making dinner, watching TV, and then going to bed. Like, that's a really good life. I'm not saying anything against it. Yeah. But that is not the one that I can exist in. Yeah. Every thing I get into this, I want to be in this world.
Welcome to the Starving Artist Club.
Right. It's a place to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Who needs dinner when you could create content?
Boy, you have clearly seen my fridge.
But seriously, yeah, and Young Mage in the chat still hanging out, you know, kid. At I think it's past midnight right now in the chat saying he thinks he's the best at what he does at his age, and that's absolutely right. And I think he is, and that's what
he's amazing.
He's amazing.
I'm a fan, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're brilliant.
I love Rhino. I love Phil. Everyone in the chat, thank you for hanging out. But this we had to round it out. I could do this all night. Clearly, this guy can too. But we're going to round this out, and we're going to go face the D20 as we do on the Hive Mind, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've taken way more time than you thought I was going to.
Hey, dude, it's your show. This is great.
I'm having fun. So
this is the thing. Even though I do a interview style thing, the best kind of guest is the ones that talk. The ones that don't is like the one word answers. I'm like, so what do you think? They're just like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just like, okay. I'm like writing more script like while we're doing the thing. This is great. This is perfect. So how we do this is you're going to roll the spin down.
Yep.
That correlates to a non-magic related question. Dude, didn't I know
first competitive?
I knew
you did your research by accident.
By accident, exactly. I'm like dice bag. This one. Yep. But it just happened to be a good one. But we're gonna, and then it correlates to a question, non-magic related, and we're gonna find out a little bit more about the man behind the madness.
So I spin.
Let's do it. So we have
Jumanji rules.
That's right. Number 9, lucky number 9.
That's 3 lightning bolts.
See, and you got it. I'm not even making this up, ladies and gentlemen. He got it. Ask the interviewer anything.
What's your favorite movie?
All right, so back to this. I would have to say it depends. I'm a moody movie watcher. My favorite, yes.
I've got actually a really good question.
Okay. I was going to say Requiem for a Dream.
Nice. Yeah. I think mine right now. It's been lately would be Lost in Translation.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
All right, so I've got a question. Credit goes to Todd Stevens on this one.
Okay.
He asked this question in the episode that is released tomorrow of Ponder Podcast.
Spoiler alert.
If you could trade places with any one person,
okay,
how would you go about it?
How would I go about it? How would I acquire? Like, do I have to physically skin their face? And what am I doing? Hannibal Lecter thing?
I'm the one asking you.
Oh, jeez. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until I get reincarnated 500 years into the future. So so the technology of cloning is perfect, and then I will go, and then by that time we'll have that technology. So we'll also have time travel. I'm going deep here.
Sure.
And then I will take those pieces of technology, go back in the day to a real life Back to the Future, and get that sports thing and make all the money like Biff was trying to do.
Okay. I mean, we're in a Nexus of Fate world now. Time travel's on the table.
That's true. All right. So that was a long BS answer. Let's roll the dice again.
All right. I got a 14.
14. Your favorite non-MTG YouTuber?
My favorite non-MTG.
Now that you told me you don't consume content.
Philip DeFranco.
Philip DeFranco.
Philip DeFranco is my favorite. The way that he presents the news is very interesting.
The Godfather.
I like the mentality that he has when it comes to presenting both sides, regardless of, and then eventually giving his own opinion, but doing what he can to at least, even if he is personally biased, providing all the viewpoints, keeping it in a very shortened version that allows you to consume content and then explore subjects as you are interested in them. I think he's a phenomenal resource. He's one of the longest running YouTubers, a phenomenal part of the community, a very outspoken voice towards, actual improvement and ways to utilize that platform.
Sure.
And it's just a really good way. I use it a lot as a way to keep up to date as kind of the first source that I use, and then use that to sort of lead my research into other subjects.
Absolutely. Yeah. Parents watch news. Our generation watches Philip DeFranco.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let's you got time for a couple more hits?
I'm having fun. I can be here as long as you want.
Number 2, if you could relive any grade, which one would it be and why? It's kind of a riff off your question for me.
If I could relive any year, so am I just like going back and reliving all like those memories kind of stuff, or am I like changing things?
Well, it was kind of the greatest hits year for you.
7th grade.
7th grade. I loved junior high.
7th grade was the greatest hit year for me. This is one in which I had one teacher who was phenomenal. I don't know if it's like a bad etiquette to say his name. I don't really get how the internet works still. But the point being that I'll call him Mr. M.
Sure.
I had him for 3 classes. I had him for block 3rd, 4th, and 6th period. 3rd, it was for English. 4th, it was for history. And 6th, it was for one that was called, this was like future problem solvers.
Okay.
Where it was like this, you had a full class of people and they would like present you with these scenarios. And it was based on the idea of like, an example to toss out would be like, they'd say, all right, so due to one thing, nuclear waste has been stored has leaked into the ocean and has now been sitting here. It's been realized, and now there is a section of the ocean that's contaminated.
Sure. And
as kids, we were like, so what ways do you have to like solve this? And it was more just our ability to think critically, come up with solutions, and really just frame this mentality of solution-oriented.
What a fun class.
It was very interesting. And so I had him for all 3 of these. He's one of the greatest teachers that I've ever had. Mm-hmm. And, the soundtrack for that one was Still Rock and Roll to Me by Billy Joel. This was like right in the realm that I figured that, and the whole class loved it. And it was just it was a really good year for me. Beyond that one, then I'd probably choose to relive like my junior year.
Okay.
I was in high school, but I was going to college at the time through a program in which I was studying oceanography and marine biology. And I just made a lot of really good friends during that year, had a lot of fun. This is another year in which I had some of the greatest teachers that I had the opportunity to study under, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah, sure.
Those were two really greatest hits years for me.
Awesome. Big fan of junior high. I don't know what it was. It's just magical years. I don't know if it's that age or whatever, but
we got to go see 8th grade.
Yeah, you're just getting out of like the awkwardness of being a little kid, and just before you're completely gross and awkward.
I was still fully in the awkwardness. I'm still waiting to get out of that. Don't me
yeah, I mean, physically, that was my greatest years. Now I'm just a mess. All right, let's hit it again. Number 9. Let's hit it again.
I don't get to ask you another question. 18.
No. Your favorite TV series?
My favorite TV series. I think there are. What are the greatest TV series? Boy, that's a big question. I tend to go for ones that are a little bit more lighthearted and have a lot of like rewatch value.
Okay.
I think.
Big Friends fan?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
I honestly don't know what it is. I can't get into it.
Yeah.
I think I have a really hard time with studio audience laughs.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I've got two answers.
Not a big canned laughter guy.
Not big into it. So I think one that actually taught me a lot of the life lessons that I learned, and like it was the one that I watched after school. It was one that still to this day I like reflect on and I think about, and when I come up with a situation, I'll occasionally like remember that episode was Scrubs.
Okay. I was just talking about Zach Braff the other night.
Yeah, that was a show that really had an impact on me.
Sure.
When I was growing up, and that was actually kind of in that same realm of sort of junior high into high school.
Yeah.
And then the other one would actually be Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And I work in local government.
Okay.
The first season is actually my favorite, the first and second season, even though they're probably the objective worst.
Okay. I'll give you that.
I promise you, they had a consultant who had worked in local government. I promise you.
Right.
That show gets uncomfortably real with like what it's been like in the past with local government at times.
But still so funny too. And that's the joke about it, right? It's because it's taking something that's probably not very humorous. Unless you're laughing all day at work. I don't know.
I've certainly had some moments that feel like they could have been.
You're chuckling? Yeah. Perfect. All right. Last go around. Number 12.
Well, have we done 12 yet?
No, but
that's 4 lightning bolts.
I like that one.
That's a boring one?
It's a boring one.
Why'd you write? There's your questions.
Back again, I know.
You got to pick them. 13. This is actually my favorite number.
Number 1 thing on your bucket list. This is one of my favorites.
Number 1 thing on my bucket list. Gosh.
Yeah, I love this question.
I honestly, It's shocking how unprepared I am for this question, given how many like goals that I have.
It's hard, man.
Solidifying a goal to me as like, what's the one thing that you would want to do?
This stumped Professor pretty bad. Love you, Brian.
Brian's amazing, isn't he?
Brian's great. I drank whiskey with Brian on stream. That was a mess.
Whiskey's tasty.
I had BSB. Oh, well, you're from here. Have you had BSB yet?
Yeah.
The brown sugar bourbon.
I've got a bottle of it at home.
I was pounding that. I had the worst headache the next morning. He was drinking High West like a gentleman. Things got strange.
I remember the first night that I tried that stuff.
It's delicious.
It was a night.
Exactly. It is a night. But
what is the number 1 thing on?
I try to stall for you, bro.
No, I know. I know. This is a tricky one. So, can I go for something that's like Can I do a couple of like smaller things?
It's your show, brother.
All right. I want to do commentary for a Pro Tour.
Okay.
I want to actually, you know what? One thing that is kind of moving very much into a priority for me is actually finishing out my degree.
Okay.
I have not actually acquired a degree. It's something that when I was in it, when I was in high school, I was not prepared for it, the amount of effort and time that it would take. And
sure.
Dropping out of that and going back to high school.
Yeah.
I jumped right into college right after high school, and I had a very difficult time with my motivation as far as seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't have a lot of work experience because I'd been doing sports.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very difficult for me to imagine like what the point of it was. You know, I'm sitting here in a class when I could be doing something. Why?
Sure.
And so I ended up leaving. And so actually I'm heading back to school this fall to finish out the degree. So
Congratulations.
That's one that's really big for me. And then I really want to travel's becoming increasingly big for me. Getting to go to these Grand Prix, getting to be a part of the community. So I think a really big one is going to be trying to go to Europe or something like that next year, if I can, really expanding the travel aspect of what I'm doing. Man, that's a big question. I should probably be prepared with an answer. But when you ask me like bucket list, I'm like, my bucket list contains 50 items. You're like, number one.
Right. That's a whole other show. Yeah, that's awesome. No, hey, it's bucket list question stumps everyone, man. But yeah, it's a big one, and yeah, I don't know. All right, so that's Face the D20. Hey, you survived.
I faced it.
You faced it. It's a Theros D20.
It wasn't that scary, actually.
I'll make it scarier.
You will?
No.
All right. I mean,
next time.
Tough questions. Hit me with them. I'm prepared. I will battle them.
Any upcoming projects you could spoil, preview, anything like that? Kick around, flirt with.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say.
Sure.
But I will say keep your ears and eyes open for an announcement for something upcoming with Sam Tang and I, as well as some very exciting people. There will be an announcement in the coming weeks that is going to be very, very exciting. It's going to be a territory that I have never been in before, and I'm beyond hyped. That's as far as this is something that for me just really feels like a big thing. Other than that, I can say that I will be at Grand Prix LA. I won't be playing.
Okay.
You can assume as you will what I might be doing.
Sure.
There. Could be anything, you know?
I can't wait for the Inception game when you're in a suit and you're calling a suit that Ben Bateman's in.
Allegedly.
That's going to be my favorite thing ever. And then I could die. Talk about bucket list. I want to see that. I want to see the suit on suit, calling the suit, because Ben's killing it right now on the tables.
We'll trade suits.
I don't know, man.
How tall is Ben?
He's pretty tall.
What's pretty tall?
I don't know. I've never seen.
I'm 6 foot.
I've never seen it in person. I just talked to him online.
I'm 6 foot with exceptionally average build.
Okay.
So I could swap a suit with your average person.
Okay.
Well, when I buy a suit, the only thing that I need to do is get an inch off the bottom of the pants.
He's no Matt Tabak. We'll say that. Matt Tabak.
I love Matt's
beast.
Matt's great. I got to hang out with him when I was doing the pre-release with Loading Ready Run. Did that for.
He's a Vegas guy.
Hour of Devastation, and he was a blast to hang out with. And actually, just to tie back to a previous point, that was another point that I think may have gotten me towards coverage, is because Marshall was a part of that.
Yeah,
and he was really, really kind to me. Marshall is someone who I really look up to as a commentator, because even at that point, I was like, this is what I'm interested in. He took the time while we were there that weekend to talk to me about things that I could be doing, or what is it that you like about commentary, and saying the things that, I should really try and develop more. Sure. Marshall has been just incredible in, I don't know if he had any say whatsoever as far as saying you should give this guy a shot, and maybe he wouldn't have anyway. But I'm there now. It's amazing having the chance to just work alongside someone who I've looked up to for quite some time. So
it's awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. TJ Rogers, I hope you guys had a good show, as good a show as I did, because this was a hell of a lot of fun. Where can the good kids find you, sir? You can find me on Twitter at Red Baron MTG. I'm generally active on there. It's a good place to just contact me if you need anything. My DMs are open, so just occasionally people like to ask me questions. Sure. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/RedBaronMTG. Also, twitch.tv/Geek Fortress, which will be going live shortly. After this, sorry, we'll dive into the second round or something like that. And then beyond that, you can find the Ponder Podcast, and you can find me doing some coverage, twitch.tv/Magic, hopefully at a upcoming Grand Prix. Excellent. Might be kind of fun. So a lot of places, a lot of fun. Oh, and pay attention for that announcement coming up. Man. Will be on a venue that I have not yet been on. Which I'm going to break out my bottle of BSB that's in my backpack, get them liquored up, and really find out what the deal is about this. It's not a bad strategy. It's not a bad strategy. It's kind of worked with Sam, too. Yeah. But you can find me, Planeswalkers, right here on this very channel. We said thank you so much for all the new subscribers. 600 is not lost on me. I was happy that 10 people wanted to subscribe to this channel. So passing the 600 mark, little pat on the back. Very excited about that. You can also find me on Twitter at OrzovDunn, Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff. Yeah, until next time, Planeswalkers. Oh, and again, thank you so much to cardsphere.com for making the Hive Mind and 10th Street Hooligans possible. Thank you so much. Go to txcp.store, get your 15% off with promo code Hive Mind. Yeah, until next time, Planeswalkers, I will see you all in the multiverse.